Et nous, dans le nom, connus des goélands et des cormorans, fut si longtemps bannis des autres et de nous-mêmes. Nous croire égaux serait prétentieux, et vouloir vivre, trop demander. Music and folio on keys, amable bon video, malagon teleno.
We have all wondered, pondered, and conjectured on life's what ifs. What if this had never happened? What if I never met this person? And what if we had taken the other fork in the road? It's some of these what ifs that jump to mind when I think of Stivell, Somerset's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, because his pioneering and groundbreaking exploration of the folk harp on so many fronts recognizes that, indeed, we wouldn't be the harp players we are today if he hadn't begun performing on stage in 1953 on a small nylon-strung harp his father made with an eye toward reviving the Celtic harp in Brittany. If he hadn't pioneered playing on a wire-strung harp in concerts by 1965 and explored modernizing the ancient music, giving rise to the Breton and Celtic music revivals. Or if he had not fathered the Celtic rock genre in taking the stage with the Moody Blues in 1968. And certainly if he had not recorded that pivotal instrumental album, Renaissance of the Celtic Harp, in 1971, which influenced thousands of musicians and drove many of them into actually playing the harp. What if he had not performed in that concert at the Olympia in Paris in 1972, where he rocked it with his band, harp, electric guitar, drums, a risky artistic leap at the time, but apparently a step in the right direction because that recording sold over 1.5 million copies. And what if he didn't take to the road? Started touring and showcasing for audiences the harp as a powerful and integral part of his unique blend of Breton and Celtic music. I saw him perform in Philadelphia in the mid-1980s, just after I started playing the harp. And I was never the same harp player after that. What if I had never seen or heard of Alain Stivell? Where would we be in the harp world? So many what ifs. Yet here we are today, more than 50 years down the road, he did take. And we are all the better for the path that Alain Stivell forged for the harp community. To promote Breton culture, he created the stage performer persona named Stivell, which means springs. And metaphorically and literally, the music has sprung forth in a career that has spanned the decades. He has been and continues to be a towering presence on stage. We are wholly indebted to Alain Stivell for his artistic vision and grateful the wide-ranging impression he has made on those who followed him on that road. He's beyond being the foundation. He is the bedrock upon which the folk harp community has been built. Thank you, Alain, for your incalculable contributions to our music world.
Thank you, Kathy, and hello, everybody. We're here in Brittany. I'm here with Alain Stivell for this very special occasion. I'm sure, Kathy, you will remember a while ago when we mentioned the Alain for getting the Lifetime Achievement Award, and well, here it is. It's happening today. So I'm sure you're very happy with this very unique moment. To me, it's a great honor for me to give this prize. I mean, a great honor as a Breton, as a harp player as well. And sometimes I wonder if I would be there if Alain wasn't there. So Trugar je was door avec tout arpertes great avec een België Tchèque itinéraire avec Ariès à Brezoneg, oui. Just a few words in Breton to say thank you very much for the harp, the Celtic harp, for the music, for the Breton language also. Trugar je was door, a huge thank you very much. is the prize.
Ben oas douedor, trigaredor, un enor bras evidon, just pegur tom an bed gant an delen geltiek, gant an sonerez geltiek, gant pep tra en dro a zevenadur, hag ur bijadur evidon peloz peloz eskemet an bras gant kaza dut, déjà stadou unanat pe der yual.
Maybe a bit of English now.
A bit of English with the Breton accent. In fact, I'm very honored for prize, the prize.
An award.
An award, Cantor.
The Lifetime Achievement Award.
Lifetime achievement. Wow. And because for me it has been so much a pleasure to how do you say, to spread the way, to spread this music, to spread the Celtic harp way, and to with many people who have been enthusiastic with this instrument, but also of course with the music itself, with Celtic music, and of course to make the Breton and Celtic culture being alive for a long time, forever if possible.
Thank you very much. So normally at that point we clap, people just clap, so I'm trying to clap myself. But thank you very much. So Alan, you just started to talk about your father. Yes. And the making of the harp that you've seen when you were 9 years old.
Yeah.
And then what happened? The harp was made in front of you, and how did you start?
I was a child. I was 8 years old when my father decided, in fact, to make this. Some Irishmen would beat his 14 bloody Celtic harp. But no, but it was so long a time that the poets in Brittany were using the word harp, Armoric harp, Celtic harp, Breton harp, Brittany's harp, and nobody was really thinking, well, that harp at last will exist or not, will take life. In fact, I would say will be alive.
Will bring life to the instrument.
And my father, after years of thinking of that, saying, I'm going to make this harp, because it's true that in the beginning of the 20th century there have been two persons who have done something for the Celtic harp in Brittany. Was Paul Odiveres, who was living in Britain, in Wales, I think, and he was coming while to while, and with his wife, and coming with a classic harp or Celtic harp. I don't know very much, Irish harp, and so there was also Eloise Ferguson coming from Scotland, who was coming from time to time. And at last, a bit before the last war, Gilles Geoffrenou began to make a harp, and he said himself that he was not good, and so he burned the harp even, and so on.
First harp.
So in fact, there are some things which happened, but we had no result in a way, because the result would be, we cannot speak of a renaissance of the Celtic harp, because there's no renaissance, because they're just occasionally people coming, but there's no result, in fact, because nobody is coming to ask for lessons, nobody is going to ask to make harps, and so there's no, how do you say, spreading of the instrument at all, in fact, before last war, in fact. And so when my father made this idea to make a harp which should be, in fact, so beautiful and so good a harp. In fact, the idea to use is knowledge in science and techniques and so on, to make, without having been taught how to do a harp. he just practiced making a violin and making a guitar, but he was very clever about making things, invent things and so on, and in very different fields, and that he made all these knowledge to try to make a harp which would be the absolute harp, in fact, which would be a kind of Stradivarius harp, so that the harp would be so good and so nice to look at, that it would be, everybody would want to play it and so on. And that happened. That happened first on me. In fact, the first impact was on me, because as a child, I'd been 8 years old, I look at the harp being made, and more and more it was more and more made. It was more and more achieved, and I was looking at this harp, which was taking form and taking life in a way. But it took life, of course, when the first string was put on in April or March 1953, and then I was 9 years old, and after 1 year of work for my father, because it was just a hobby, so just time to time, every day, but every evening, every Sunday, every Saturday, and so 1 year of work by my father, making carves all around the harp. And then the first string put on the harp, the sound was angel sound, something fantastic. It was really, in fact, the best, a sound, a perfect sound, a perfect paradise sound, and so I was taken by that really as something coming back from a link with the ancient ages. Towards now, and I felt that feeling then, and so for me it was obvious that I wanted to have some more, to find a teacher, because no more tradition in Brittany, of course, because it was centuries that the Celtic harp was not played. It would be a long story to make a. It's not the time to make a conference about what is Celtic or Breton or in the harp or not. It's not the subject, I think. But the thing is that this Celtic harp impressed myself so much that so I asked for a teacher, but the teacher was a classic harp teacher, Denise Mejron. And so with my father, they made my father was advising her about the modality of the Breton music, of the Celtic music, because of course what was special in my as you say education is that after having played the piano, so a bit of classical music, in fact it was the idea of making already a kind of fusion of the music of the Celtic nations all around. So it's perhaps the only case where that a child was educated in the fusion of the Celtic cultures of all the nations, of the Celtic nations, because I played the Breton tunes, Breton songs, Breton hymns, Breton guairs, Breton and the Celtic, Irish, Scottish, Welsh tunes, and the arrangements. So it becomes, as a sudden, became something obvious that there was and there is a Celtic music. Because I had the feeling that it was something common between all this, and the idea, it was what I was saying.
But the Celtic ideas of
so there was the idea of the Celtic harp, but also the idea of the Celtic music
and the modal music.
And what I was going to say. Education.
So you just mentioned Denise Mejron. You learned with her, but was she interested already by?
So Denise Mejron wrote arrangements and I was how do you say, the cobaye?
The guinea pig.
Huh?
The
That's it?
The guinea pig.
Okay. Of her about to practice arrangements, to play the arrangements, and so the first time I played on stage was for a conference that was made by Denise Méchon in Paris, and I played at the end, and so the people in the hall was enthusiastic because of perhaps the beauty of the instrument itself, even to look at, but also the sound of this instrument. A child playing on this harp was something of course charming, obviously, and so everybody was enthusiastic, and everybody wanted to make this harp a revival, and what was why, for example, people from Blaymore, the Blaymore community, this association of Scout boys and girls, wanted also to have their girls playing the Celtic harp, and so
we're talking
it
back
begins,
to 1953.
if we are in the first year already, and the two first years, so 1953, 1954, 1955, we already, my father and me went to different places in schools, in the cathedral in Vannes, and then in San Malo and different places when people began to be enthusiastic for the instrument, and then people wanted my father to make other harps. He made harps, in fact, helped by how do you say, menuisier, ébéniste.
Wood carpenter.
Yes, carpenters, to make even series, des séries de harp. Sets of harps, and so the different harps that sold to different people in different places, in Redon, in San Malo, in Pontivy, and
different Breton towns.
Other people, as in Nantes, were also beginning to play the Celtic harp, made by other people, and more and more. In fact, this. If we go, I played even in the Paris Olympia, first part of Lynn Renaud. You might know this French singer who came often in America in the past. And so at the end of the 50s, in fact, so it was already this revival of the Celtic harp was something already there. And in fact, that came into a reality at the end of the 50s, and at the end of the 50s, there were everywhere in Brittany, there were already people beginning to play the Celtic harp, people making harps, Celtic harps, and so that was something, as you would say, installed.
Yeah, installed. Or launched.
Yeah.
Something launched.
Yeah.
A bit like a fashion. In fact, you started the fashion of people wanting to.
A fashion it's a bit too big to speak of fashion, but in this movement, which was this kind of first revival after the war, which was a general cultural revival, were mainly based on the bagadou, which is are the Breton pie bands. All around this Breton pie band, there was things happening. There was the fest-noz beginning, with the canadiscon, the traditional singing for dancing. There was what called Celtic circles, the folklorical groups of dancers, and all this was going up in these 50s. And it was in that movement that my father made this harp and made this Celtic harp revival happen. At the same time, you know, I think you know that in other Celtic countries it was not that. It was, of course, it was not as extinguished as it was in Brittany, of course in Ireland, even in Scotland. But it's true that there was almost no more anybody was playing, for example, harp as a Celtic Irish harp as a solo instrument. For example, it was just you were singing with a harp, and it was not that considered in that time. In fact, in the early 50s, and we met in fact, different people as Roshini Hay, Roshini Otuama. In the same time, of course, you know that there was Mary O'Hara, who was that American-Irish woman who was, to my knowledge, the only professional woman singing and playing with an Irish harp. And so it was not dead, but it was not very alive, in fact, in Ireland, even less in Scotland, and in a way, even less in Wales, as in Wales, of course, what we call the Celtic harp was not, there was not at all, there was only this, the classical harp, and there was even, I don't know even if was anybody beginning to play the tribal harp and things like that in the early 50s, I don't know. Bowen, Ivan Bowen began and much later. And in fact, so the relation also we had with this Irish family, which especially the Otuama in Dublin. Also we met Scottish people in a Celtic festival as in Brest. Made also this perhaps how do we say crystallizing the beginning of something, not only in Brittany but even in other countries. Because I think of course, so I can say that we have a cross influences, because there are the influence, of course, the influence of mainly the Irish, Ireland, and Scotland was so important for us in Brittany, but perhaps also that there's revival in Brittany what helped, in fact, something a little bit for the Irish and Scots to make more alive also the harp in their countries.
I always see you on stage with harps, always, and of course, but we shouldn't forget that you also play the pipes. It's something very important for you. And what about the relation, do you think, pipes and harp, were they complementary for you, or is it something totally different, for instance?
In fact, of course I fall in passion not only with the Celtic harp, but also with the Celtic culture in general. And I was almost kind of radical about this culture, and so I wanted to know everything possible, not only in the music, but I began to learn Breton language, but also to have initiation in the other Celtic languages, and also, of course, mythology, history, drawings, Celtic drawings. So everything which was Celtic was something so important, and this has been all my life, in fact, very central. Because I was directly going to I was in the interpretation, and for example, there's something that I knew I've discovered later is the guitar flat picking. I can't play the guitar myself, but I discovered played by other people, and I wanted to adapt the flat picking on the harp. And so I discovered that doing the flat picking with two hands, of course, on the harp, then I was coming back to the African kora style, technique, something similar to it. And this use of this picking of the harp, I think is something very good, because it helps to have at the same time, to have two rhythms, superposed rhythms. And
kind of polyrhythmic approach.
Sorry?
A kind of polyrhythmic approach.
Yeah, polyrhythmic approach, which in fact help to have at the same time a square beat, in a way, I don't know how to say that, together with the melody, which can be totally free and totally rubato. This is very, very important because for Catholic music, because if there is a culture and a music which is against things which are too much on the beats, we can have beats, but the melody can be out of the beat together. And this way of being polyrhythmic is very important, I think, and helps very much the Celtic interpretation to be there. But perhaps I can come back now to this kind of chronology because I was ending this 50s, but the rock and roll came in Europe, because later than in America, and so we are in the late 50s when the rock and roll and the electric guitar, all this is coming, and I'm very enthusiastic for that because before I was more in the idea of a fusion of classical and Celtic music, and rock and roll arriving, I was enthusiastic because there was, for the first time, there was in the radios and places like that, in the cinema, because the music or the western, thing like that, even before, even Negro spirituals, something like that, were things which are a little bit more cousins with Celtic music. But the rock and roll, blues even, and other forms of music which became fashionable, in fact, were coming back to pentatonic, to modern music, things like that, and things which are much closer to us in a way. Just thinking that my generation it could be easier for my generation to go to our culture, because the fashionable culture, music in the radios were a little bit closer to us. And
so the link came straight away when you...
And so around mid-1960, in fact, I had in mind that it should be Britain had to create bands which would be as the Shadows, the Beatles later, or bands like that, which would do the fusion between rock and roll and Celtic music and Breton language. But of course I was only 16 years old, and that was still just an idea. And it came some years before the mid-60s when I was in Paris. I was a student, and I came to the American Center for Students and Artists who made hootenannies, who made evenings, singing evenings on each Tuesday. And
kind of open stage.
Well, yes, and so I went there and sang a song and another song the week after, and so that, in fact, I created my repertoire there, in fact, before even experimenting it in Britain itself. I began to sing in Paris in 1966, and before there was no, I had it in mind, but I had no idea how I could become professional and even singer. I wanted to sing, but how I could begin, by where,
So you were a pioneer.
Where, and so it's difficult to even believe that our culture was rejected in that time, in fact. So it began to be possible by chances like that. In fact, I've got many good chances in my life. That was a big chance, in fact, that Lionel Rochman, who was managing this evening there, that helped me very much, because even singing in that place, there was some people coming from the radios, for example, from journalists and people like that, who invite me to go in the Radio France.
Yeah, somehow they were ready for that.
In 1 year after, I had already signed. I was signed by Universal, by Philips, called Philips in that time. So my contract 1 year after began. Just very, very quickly.
So you were 23.
I began at 22.
26, you said.
And in 23, of course, when I had I had my contract in the pocket. But
Well,
it was
something unbelievable.
sorry.
Somehow it was unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yes, because
For that time.
I was invited to play in '68. I played in London, Queen Elizabeth Hall, first part of the Moody Blues, who was a very big #1 pop band in the world, and so things happened very, very quickly. My first professional album, Reflections, in '70, we had already present different receipts of music, in fact, on that album to show to people that you can. In fact, there's something also pedagogical in my work. In fact, is to make people sensible to that, and perhaps some people will be more together with one experiment more than another. And so I feel very important to present different approaches. And so for me it was important to show how an infinity of possibilities is there. I released Renaissance of the Cathedral, which has a totally different approach, which was I was in a way taking advantage of being already in a way beginning to be popular, to make many people involved and interested by this instrument, which was so important for me, which is still so important, so central.